Right off the bat, I want to say, if you enjoyed this game, more power to you. That was the point. They made a video game because they wanted people to enjoy the video game, and you are 100% entitled to be simple and easily amused. I hated this game from beginning to end. The story didn't grab me, the gameplay had absolutely no innovation, the devs spent way too much time trying to make it cinematic instead of fun to play, and I was either bored and frustrated instead of being intrigued and engaged. I might be the only one who feels this way, and from what I've seen, I do indeed appear to be the only one who does. But why? What was it about the game that bothered me so much? The first one was great. Well, I enjoyed it. The gameplay was nothing that groundbreaking and could best be described as working well enough, but that was never the strong point of the experience. Aloy was the strong point of Zero Dawn. The opening cinematic shows us this rugged, unknown man travelling through a forest with a small baby on his back. The dialogue, while being exposition-heavy, does a good job of setting up the basics of the world that we're in. He talks about the traditions of the tribes, he tells us the outlines of the situation he and Aloy find themselves in, and hints at what happened to the world that once was, all while showing off rivers and lush grasslands, covering familiar buildings and statues. Also, during this speech, he shows off the unique selling point of the game. Yes, giant robot dinosaurs. Well, some of them look like dinosaurs. Anyway, when he reaches his destination, we're introduced to some of the key players throughout the game, and hints more at some of the setup for later. Straightforward, simple, and to the point. I'm instantly asking questions, I'm fascinated by the characters, and desperate to explore the world. I want to fight giant robots with a stick, and I'm buzzing with anticipation for the story that I'm going to be told. From here, we play the game from the point of view of a little girl who just wants to be a little girl. She wants to make friends, she wants to be part of the activities, and to be praised for doing the right thing and treated the way she sees other people being treated. Instead, she suffers under this unfair title of outcast, and is actively shunned, having no idea why. You'd have to be heartless not to feel for her. One day, she comes across a hole in the floor, and makes a life-changing discovery. The Focus. A window into the past that lets her see the remnants of the old world in a way that no one around her can. After finding out she can prove herself worthy to the people that shunned her, she sets out to use her newfound advantages to do just that. After a quick training montage and a huge time jump, we see a grown-up Aloy ready to set out into the real world. She says goodbye to the valley that she grew up in and the people in it. She has a parting conversation with Ross. She heads off for the Proving. Despite people actively making it harder for her to win and making it clear that she's not welcome there, she uses her cunning and finds another way around. It's more dangerous, but it's faster. She narrowly wins the Proving and is finally accepted by the tribe. Unfortunately, this moment of triumph is ruined by the eclipse. They kill everyone at the Proving, including Rost, who gives his life to save Aloy. She wakes up sometime later back at the Nora village, specifically the Sacred Mountain. After inspecting a Focus she found on one of the cult members, it turns out that they came to kill her. They say that she is a match for an image of a woman that looks exactly like her. One of the matriarchs interrupts this moment, and she's then told some more of the details of her birth. The reason she was an outcast was because she had no mother. She was found in the heart of the Sacred Mountain. Seeing how the Nora tribe is matriarchal in nature, this was a big problem for them, as they saw her as a bad omen if not an outright curse. With these new revelations, she sets off to avenge Ross and find out why the Eclipse wanted her dead. This is fascinating story writing in my opinion, keeping the focus tight on one person that you can emotionally connect with, while widening the scope to a larger plot that involves more people and has higher stakes for the world at large. On her travels, she finds out that the Eclipse are being led by an AI called Hades, to raise an army of long-dormant machines to bring about the end of Earth. We later find out that Hades was once a subroutine of a larger AI called Gaia, whose job it was to repopulate the Earth after the Pharaoh Plague in an effort called Zero Dawn. What was the Pharaoh Plague and Zero Dawn, you ask? Well, Ted Pharaoh was an Elon Musk type who pushed innovation a bit too far. He created an army of robots that could consume organic matter to create ammunition and more robots. It turns out that humans are made of organic matter, so when a glitch in the system made the machines independent thinkers and let them ignore the safety protocols protecting humans, let's just say things got bleak. So a woman called Elizabeth Sobek, who has a passing resemblance to Aloy, begins Project Zero Dawn and created Gaia to save life on Earth and give humanity a second chance. Unfortunately, this meant letting everyone currently on Earth die out, as nothing could actually stop Ted's machines. But on the bright side, a second chance is still a second chance. So Gaia's job was to maintain a number of subroutines to clean up the Earth after the machines had run out of fuel to power themselves. This came in the form of huge mechanical animals that would till the soil, dispose of waste metal, filter the air and water, and essentially re-terraform Earth. Hades, as I mentioned, was one of these subroutines. His function was to be a reset button if something went wrong with the terraforming efforts so that Gaia could start fresh. It's really, really obvious that they started with, let's have a primitive human society fighting giant robot dinosaurs, and then started thinking about how this could have happened. But you know what? It kind of works. It's lofty enough to be silly sci-fi power fantasy that you can get lost in playing, but it's close enough to the ground that it's believable, at least in the context of the world they've shown us. This is just a twist on the robots rise up and take over the world plot that we've been told so many times, but it's a fun one. I like it. Anyway, a signal of unknown origin forces Hades to activate when it wasn't supposed to, and attempt to destroy a perfectly functioning ecosystem. In response, Gaia tries to destroy Hades, and consequently herself, by blowing up the facility they were in. Unfortunately, Hades escapes and corrupts the other subroutines. While this is happening, Gaia initiates a cradle facility in the sacred mountain of the Nora to use Elizabeth's DNA to create Aloy, so that she can fix and reinstate the other subroutines along with Gaia herself. We have some more story revelations about Ted and Elizabeth in the Apollo database, but this was meant to be a brief overview, and I feel like I've already talked about it more than I meant to. I haven't even mentioned Silence's role in all of this yet. From here, Aloy finds out how to overpower and shut down Hades and the machines he's been controlling, becoming the hero of Meridian and saving the world. I enjoyed the game. I played it a few times. I went out into the open world, I did the side quests, completed challenges, and started looking for the collectibles. It had moments where the gameplay mechanics started to feel a bit unbearable and annoying, but never to the point where it left me sour on the overall experience. DLC, on the other hand, was not that great, to be honest. It felt tacked on and basically just a rehash of the main story we'd already just played. The only real difference is that it had bigger monsters with more HP and seemed to totally forget the main push of the game was stealth combat. This is something I call artificial difficulty. It's not harder because the challenge has been more carefully crafted to test the abilities and skills that you've learned. It's harder because here's a big monster that you've never seen before in a small room where you can't hide that's going to attack you continuously until you hit the weak points enough time for it to die. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that's no difference from the Souls games, you just gotta get good. While I can see why you'd make that argument, you're wrong. The Souls games didn't give you a focus to scan the enemy and find all the weak points, or to look for the path that they're walking so you can avoid them altogether. They don't tell you to hide in a bush and plan an attack and give yourself the advantage. The Souls games are very clear about the way you play them, and never demand you change your way to face the challenge. The consistency is key. Horizon boss fights, for the most part, feel like the game just shouted bored and started throwing everything at you. Like, have fun surviving this attack while you desperately run across the room trying to craft more ammo and heal. So yeah, the game had its issues, and it had moments I really didn't enjoy. They made some design decisions that I didn't like at times. But the parts of the game that I loved were far more prominent in my mind. Knowing what happened at the end of the game made the following playthroughs more tragic. Hearing what people were talking about in the audio logs and text docs with the false hopes that they were fed. The visual storytelling takes on a new poignance. It had an impact on me, and at the end of the day, that's what good games are meant to do. Forbidden West? Well, it got a reaction out of me. That's something. I'm going to go full spoilers, so if you want to know what happens in the game free of somebody else's opinion, now is the time to stop the video and go and play it. We kick off the game with nearly 15 minutes of uninterrupted cutscenes from the point of view of two different characters. One explaining what happened in Zero Dawn, and then Aloy explaining what she's doing now and why. Nowhere near as enthralling a start as the first game, but it's only just started, so we'll cut it a break. Aloy is going to the ruins of a company called Far Zenith because she got a lead that they may have a full copy of the Gaia AI. Val shows up out of nowhere, as it seems Aloy ran off during the celebration in Meridian, because that's just what she does now. Not really a people person is our Aloy, despite that being her driving motivation in the first game. After being told that he should shave off his beard, they make their way inside and find a video presentation explaining that Far Zenith planned on travelling across the galaxy to another system to start life over. A separate operation from Zero Dawn, and I honestly don't remember if it got mentioned in the first game or not. This is about the time that alarm bells and red flags started showing up for me. It was a huge Chekhov's gun moment that I was unfortunately right about. It turns out that they planned on stealing Gaia from Zero Dawn along with the agreed upon Apollo database. Not sure why they would agree to share the history of the human race but wouldn't help them with terraforming efforts, but never mind. They indeed ended up stealing a copy of Gaia. Fake one. Aloy laments this failure and harshly bashes Val's belief that a magical-looking golden woman whose purpose was to create life from nothing and populate the Earth could possibly be called a goddess. He forgives her instantly and reminds us that Aloy is really cool and that Silence is a person who knows shit. I've not really spoken about him up until this point. His role is more prominent to me here than it was in the last game. In Zero Dawn, he felt like a mysterious background character. He had impactful story moments, but I don't really think of him when I look back over the experience. Here, however, he's the catalyst for most of the events of the game. Aloy and Val go back to Meridian to ask the Spy Master if he can help them find him. As luck would have it, he wanted to talk to Aloy about the Spire where she defeated Hades. It's doing some weird things. Anyway, she climbs to the top and gets a message from Silas telling her to go to the Forbidden West. A phrase that gets a lot of airtime as the game goes on. Like, a lot. People say Forbidden West a lot in this game. It gets kind of annoying. In order to go west, they need permission from the Tenakth tribes who live in those lands. They have a tentative peace deal with the Kaja on the border after the atrocities of the Sun King. Luckily, everyone has heard of Aloy and how cool she is, and one of the marshals gives her a free pass just before being murdered by a rebel insurrection. Because I guess it wouldn't be a Horizon game without a shadowy offshoot of the good guys that you can guiltlessly kill in droves. From here we start doing mini-quests for the Tenakth to unite the tribes in order to take a stand against the rebels that want to unite the tribes for different reasons. But first, we need to answer the call from Silence. After the events of the last game, Hades wasn't destroyed. He'd actually been captured by Silence so that he could probe him for information and set up a sequel. With all of the doors in this game being locked to Aloy's DNA, there was only so far he could get by himself. So, he leads Aloy to a proving lab where Hades was developed by killing copies of Gaia. So the plan is to see if this facility had any extra laying about that didn't get tested on. As luck would have it, 2 of them survived. Missing the necessary subroutines, but they were copies of Gaia. While retrieving a copy, however, they are interrupted by another interested party that Silence knows more about than he's letting on. Aloy then destroys her focus, because fuck having a direct line to the guy who knows everything and being well informed, and pulls out one of the infinite new focuses that she just kind of has in her back pocket now. She plans on just waiting out the intrusion, sees how she's the only one with the DNA to get in. Oh no! 2 Aloys! And space people. Yeah. This was the moment that I lost all hope for the game's story actually being good. But at least it can't get any worse from here, right? So we have Space Lex Luthor, who's a mustache-twirling evil villain type, Eric, who's the bully enforcer who just likes killing people because we need a boss to fight, and a woman that reminded me so much of Tilda Swinton that the laws of space and time actually bent to rename her Tilda so that my building brain aneurysm would be all the more satisfying. These people are the evil villain types. with no nuance, intrigue, or depth. The writers could have left the events open to interpretation, and given the idea that they might actually be the heroes we need, and Aloy doesn't have to bear the weight of the entire world on her shoulders throughout the game. Maybe, just maybe, she's getting in the way of the only people that can actually help because she can't look at the bigger picture. But I guess that would demand time, effort, and creativity. Can you tell I didn't like this game? So after the only puzzle boss of the whole game, Aloy just barely escapes with her life and a copy of Gaia, later being found in a river by Val. She's nursed back to health in a local village where we meet Zoe, Val's new love interest that Aloy gets jealous of and then immediately just gets over it. Almost like it wasn't worth including, but never mind. Zoe's village is being tormented by Hephaestus, another AI subroutine of Gaia. He's been making big, bad, nasty machines to kill people because that's what big, evil AI do. So Aloy and the gang go into a nearby cauldron to face the problem head-on. After killing a machine that Zoe considered to be sacred and scaring off the big bad, they found another subroutine called Minerva. They capture her and claim the base that they found her in as their new super-secret hideout. Gaia explains that Hephaestus is using cloud save features, so in order to defeat him, they need to capture more of the subroutines and restore them to their original functions to strengthen Gaia's influence. Honestly, this could have been the whole game. Just a sightseeing tour of an apocalyptic United States where you collect different subroutines to restore order to the natural functions of the world. No need to have any rebellious tribes trying to murder everyone or super evil space baddies. The perfect antagonist is the situation. You don't need to have any exterior human threats beyond people who don't trust you that just want to survive as well. You don't need to have some arrogant white elite millionaire trying to keep the status quo in check in every fucking story you tell. Anyway, most of the AI capturing missions are like side quests. They set you up with a quirky side character that wants to help you and some of their friends that don't think you should be helping them. The Las Vegas one was kind of fun, but it was ruined for me by being a water level. I just don't like water levels. After helping the Tanakh boss to unite his tribes, and getting Aether, one of the AI you need, Gaia gets a signal about one of the other subroutines. It seems to have a hidden message in it that's asking for help. Upon investigation and seeing how stupid and unlikable the space people are some more, it seems like Aloy 2.0 had escaped and wanted to join the Scooby Gang because the space people aren't very nice to her. Because they're bad guys. Did you know they were bad guys? Oh, and they're collecting subroutines as well so that they can rebuild Gaia, but for evil reasons. Kind of feels like they could have come in peace and everyone could have been working together to save the world. But we need human bad guys, I guess. They get Aloy 2 back to base and then let her rest for all of a few seconds before asking her more questions to get information about the space people. In another brainless twist that no one asked for, the space bad guys aren't the descendants of the people who left Earth 1,000 years ago. They are the people who left Earth 1,000 years ago. And it's ruined. Nothing can save it. There is no justification that can save this story. There is no character moment or plot thread that is ever going to make up for the stupid shit that I just heard. But at least it can't get any worse, right? After the previously mentioned Las Vegas mission, that I'm not really going to go into because it felt more like a fun aside with a jovial tone more than an impactful story section, we head off to find Demeter in another lab that was doing some more ethically questionable stuff that honestly I've just run out of the patience to care about at this point. Here we meet Alva, a chirpy go-get-em type that has a better understanding of the past than most of the NPCs in the game. I'm pretty sure they just added this so they didn't have to have Aloy explain everything to yet another person. But this creates a bit of an issue for me. It's not story or game breaking, but it's still annoying. A lot of the work we had to do in the last game could have been skipped over entirely had we just walked west for a bit. This clan knows enough about past events that they recognise Aloy as Elizabeth Sobek almost entirely unprompted. How many people knew what was happening in the past? How much did they know? Why didn't they get involved in the last game? Is this all explained away in one of the text documents that I just didn't find? That might just be a me problem, but that still feels like a glaring issue. And speaking of glaring issues, now that we have some more of the subroutines, we can get Hephaestus back. Hooray! Only he wrote out the Alpha Prime thingy that Aloy says to sound cool and make the machines do what they're meant to do. Boo. Guess we need to get an even bigger and cooler sounding code. The Omega Clearance. So off to San Francisco we go. Okay, I know it's meant to be the world we live in now, but am I the only one that finds it really distracting when they use the actual names of real places? Like, I get that they understand things better now than they did in the last game, and what Beta knows about Earth comes from the Apollo database, but it just feels weird to me. Anyway, this is where Alva and her people are trying to uncover the secrets of Thebes, Ted Pharaoh's private bunker and presumably final resting place. Lucky they're both looking for completely unrelated things in exactly the same place at exactly the same time, huh? After some more swimming gameplay and a lot of audio logs that make Ted Pharaoh out to be a complete psycho, it turns out that Alva's her CEO, is the culty kind of madman who thinks he's a reincarnation of Ted Pharaoh. You know what? That's not even close to the dumbest thing I've had to say in this video. He wants Ted's secret so he can finally understand who he is as a reincarnation of his essence and to be complete. Still makes more sense than Magic Space Immortals. In this personal vault we find yet more audio logs making Ted out to be totally insane and self-obsessed. And I can't help but feel like this is kind of missing the point of the first game. I was under the impression that Ted Pharaoh wasn't an evil man. He was overly ambitious, and that ambition was the downfall of the human race, sure. The moral of the story, well, what I understood the moral of the story to be in the last game, was to be more aware of the impact your actions have on the world around you, and to be more compassionate with the decisions that you make. Striving for a better world is a noble goal, but the endless drive of industrial progress to the point of removing human culpability and decision-making will only end in disaster. This once again feels like pointing at someone and shouting, "That's the bad guy." What he ended up doing to the Zero Dawn team was, without question, awful. But again, I didn't think it was done out of malice. He wanted to preserve the innocence of the new world that they were going to create. Now, that's clearly him lying to himself and not wanting to be remembered as the man who ended life on Earth. But to me, at least, that felt more like desperate denial than cruel intention. I'm not trying to say he was a good man by any means, but this just feels really black and white, and lacks the nuance and moral questions the first game left me with. Again, maybe that's just a me problem. Eventually, Aloy finds the Omega Clearance and Ted Pharaoh. Still alive? As a rune-sized mutated monster attached to a nuclear reactor that we don't even get to see. Anyway, CEO has a hissy fit and wants all of the evidence burned and witnesses killed. Typical culty shit. And of course it doesn't work and Aloy and Alva escape. With all this newfound knowledge, the gang meets back up at the base and we get on with the weird plan to capture Hephaestus. Basically, Gaia needs to put herself in a very dangerous situation so the game can have a climax with higher stakes. So she gets uploaded to one of the cauldrons with help from both Aloys and Val. Of course that means that the Zenith show up, kill Val, steal Gaia and Aloy too, and Aloy only survives because Tilda decides to save her. Honestly, I'm just going to speedrun the last part of the story because this is getting a bit out of hand and I just don't care anymore. Silence was using the Tanakh Rebellion as a way of building an army to attack the secret base of the Zenith so that he can get in and do silent stuff. Typical half-truth bullshit. Tilda, it seems, was the only nice Zenith, and that's why she saved Aloy. She's the good guy now. No more plot twists here. Promise. So she tells Aloy exactly how to get in and stop the Zenith, Aloy also has some secret stuff that she wants to play out with Aloy 2 on a super secret channel because it's more fun for the audience that way, I guess. Aloy then goes off to shut down the Tenakth Rebellion basically single-handedly because protagonist, forcing Silence to team up with her and use their plan instead of using his. The new Scooby Gang start the invasion of the enemy base, both sneaking and fighting their way into hostile Zenith territory. Aloy reveals her secret plan was to get Aloy 2 to release Hephaestus so that he could 3D print a whole army of new robot dinosaurs to attack the Zeniths for them. While trying to get to the top floor, we have another boss fight with the big bad space bully, because of course we do. When we do finally get to the top floor of the tower, we find Aloy 2 just kind of chilling out unguarded, and the real bad guy is revealed.
Nemesis.
The Zeniths tried to make themselves digitally immortal, or something, for some reason, and it went horribly wrong and they created a monster that's now chasing them through space and is dead set on destroying all human life in the universe, or something. Oh, and Tilda wants to steal Aloy to be her lesbian love slave while they hide away on some random planet that Nemesis will never find them on. With the final awful anime showdown with Tilda in her giant nanomachine mech suit, Silence says that he knew all of this all along and couldn't tell anyone because that would have ruined the twist at the end of the game. And he now plans on leaving Earth to learn more stuff. But touchy-feely something, he decides to stay and everyone lives happily till Horizon 3. Ginger's in space. This time it's even less personable somehow. How did that keep getting worse? I know people love this game, and it's going to be a contender for Game of the Year because it ticks all of the boxes. It's a beautiful open world, over 80 hours of story content, pseudo-RPG elements, a story with lots of big, if somewhat brainless ideas. But my fucking god, that was just awful. The story started jumping sharks and then just went looking for bigger and newer sharks to jump as the story went on. It had none of the warmth or intrigue Zero Dawn had, and none of the inspiration or passion either. It just felt video gamey. The way the story was told, the things you had to do, the solutions to the puzzles, everything felt like a video game chore instead of an immersive experience you can get lost in. Now, I played Forbidden West on stream, so I decided to give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just the fact I had people watching and I felt like I had to do the main story and get it over with quickly so that I didn't waste time in the open world and people just started getting bored. So I sat down the weekend after I finished and just explored the world. I did some of the side quests, I went hunting for the armor, and I looked for some of the collectibles. And I really wish I hadn't. The side stuff is mostly pointless busy work with predictable go here and do X gameplay. The stories I found all seem to boil down to, we're having a hard time here because supplies of some description, we're just trying to survive. It all seemed like run this way, climb up here, use the focus, kill a machine, and then most of the time it just came down to the evil Tenakth doing random things, and you walking around the area scanning everything, trying to figure out why. Maybe there are some fantastic gems in the game, but at this point I just wanted to stop playing. The mini collectible puzzles didn't help either. They all used game logic rather than common sense. Instead of pushing this wall over from the outside, I'm going to climb the outside of the building, to blow up this wall using this gadget I got in the game, to go through the hole to then use a different gadget I got in the game to pull down the wall from the inside. Later, in the same puzzle, you have to work out how to get a charged battery over a pool of water without it touching, and the thought never occurs to Aloy to put it on her shoulder. The woman has a backpack full of scrap metal she pulled off of dead machines that she killed with a stick, but lifting something kind of heavy, a foot or two higher for a few seconds, is too much? We didn't get much in the way of gameplay innovation either. A few more contextual button prompts to blow things up, or to move things when we're standing next to them. A grappling hook that just feels clunky and uncomfortable to use, and a shield that we never once use as a shield. This was a perfect opportunity to introduce more in-depth combat mechanics. Introduce a stamina system for the shield so you can't just hold it up all the time, but you can use it in a pinch. Have more varied melee weapons to collect. We see swords and hammers of all sorts around the world. Why not use them? High risk, high reward kind of stuff, like the hammers are really good for breaking heavy armor on larger creatures, but are slow and heavy, so you've got to get the timing right. The swords are faster, but don't do much to the larger machines, so you have to use them on human mobs or smaller robots. There's so much they could have done, but they just didn't. It felt like the focus was on making the game more cinematic than fun. They introduced a feature where if your special bar is full, you can pause the world for a couple of seconds and all the bad guys disappear, while Aloy puts on face paint and gets better at a random skill for a bit. I swear, if you took all of the climbing points breaking, the slow-mo scenes where you jump over big gaps, and all of the, "oh, that was close" moments, out of the game, it would easily be 10 to 20 hours shorter. And honestly, Aloy herself just felt unlikable. She felt more self-righteous and had some kind of messiah complex going on. Something about the way she spoke to the people just bothered me. In all of the friendly conversations she had with the people from the last game, she looked uncomfortable. It was like she'd had a one-night stand with all of them and doesn't know how to let them down easy. The only time she looks like she has any real personality is when she's putting some arsehole in their place. The closest we get is her getting angry at people for being so dumb and not understanding the things that were freaking her out less than a year ago. Even when she's talking about Rost, it feels flat and uncaring. It's like she's being forced to encourage Beta rather than fondly remembering him. We went from having this caring and self-sacrificing girl who just wanted to help people and be part of a tribe and found herself thrust into an incredible role of responsibility, and now we have this cynical, grumpy, ginger Batman that can't let anyone else get involved because she has to do it all herself. As I said at the start, if you enjoyed this game, good? That's the point. I'd like to at least believe they wanted to make a game that people would love and get sucked into, but after Zero Dawn, I'm just not one of those people. Almost as soon as Forbidden West started, something fell off to me, and that feeling just never went away. I understand that I might be the only one that gets upset with how silly the story got or that the gameplay was just basic at best. But that's just kind of what I'm like. I'm picky about the games I enjoy, and it's rare that I end up thinking about them all that long after I finished them. I still get a tinge of sadness every time I see that opening hologram of the guy saying goodbye to his son in the party hat, because I know what happened to them. I couldn't imagine being in that man's situation. I couldn't imagine holding it together half as well as he did. That's an incredibly impactful moment of empathy. And I don't often empathize with games in that way. Usually it's just a story that I get told and I can just brush it off and carry on with what I'm doing, and it doesn't bother me. This one stuck with me. That idea was impactful. You don't get to make me feel that way and then look at me like I'm crazy when I'm disappointed with the follow-up being a completely over-the-top and unrelatable mess. Now get out of my box vault.